Are these the greatest self-tape auditions of all time? Can you hear the skepticism in my voice? Whether they are or not, what could we learn from them as actors? I want to talk about 3 audition tapes that have gone viral. David Corenswet's Superman audition, which just sort of came out recently. Also, Britt Lauer, not sure exactly how to pronounce that. Her audition tape for Severance, which went viral very recently. And also the classic Dacre Montgomery audition from Stranger Things that came out a few years ago. What can we learn from these actors and their bold choices? Everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. Ding! Oh my gosh! She is here.
Here, IRL.
Oh my gosh, this is so amazing. So this is so cool to have my lovely wife with me while we have this discussion. And most recently, I think what started this discussion, at least here locally in the Southeast, was the Severance audition where Britt is on her bathroom floor. She starts out, or I guess it's her bathroom. I hope it's her bathroom.
Who knows?
But then she wakes up and then she's standing up and the camera tilts. By the way, that's a tilt, not a pan, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of people say pan, but pan is side to side. Tilt is up and down. That one's for free. But then she's out of the frame. She comes back in, sits down. And then let's just kind of lay out what all 3 of these tapes sort of have. In David Corenswet, there's not a lot of rule breaking per se. But what would you say is sort of the thing that is out of the norm with that one?
Sure. The reader leaning in,
Yes.
dirtying the frame, as they say.
Which I saw that it might be his wife. I don't know.
I don't know. But
And she's like presumably,
turning on and off a tape recorder
Yeah.
of some sort.
which is part of the scene, yeah.
Yeah, and where she's sitting, it seems the proximity is pretty close, but it also makes his eye line that much further off camera because she's sitting, presumably off camera, but so close that the eye line is a little bit different.
Yeah. And then, of course, Dacre Montgomery has broken every rule as we know it when it comes to self-tapes. He slates shirtless, which, would be considered a discouraging choice by a lot of people, but it fits the character. He then starts his first scene completely off camera for like 3 seconds and then walks in, but then he's in profile for a large part of that scene, which is actually a scene from Stand By Me. Amazing movie if you've never seen it. So they were using a scene from a classic movie as the first audition scene, and then he's doing a dance break between scenes. And then in the driving scene, he's not even trying to approximate driving; he's just standing. And then he like in the middle of when the music comes on, you see his cell phone, which would not fit the 1980s. So he's breaking every rule there is, so to speak. And there's a little bit of tongue in cheek with talking about that. And so I think first we want to just really address what the sort of applaud the actors for these choices. And because I know you, Brooke, have a few things to say about that. Like, so what would you say either collectively is the thing we can applaud all 3 actors for, or even individually?
I applaud them for truly diving in, deep to the character, but I think that came from their script analysis for them to understand the environment that they are embodying, or their character is centered in. If you don't know what is going on around you, there's no way for you to even bring in all of the elements that they did by breaking all of the rules. For instance, Britt, knowing how the environment informed her choices as opposed to it just being standing or sitting, she really did allow her body to get into the scene. But that had to come from preparation. It wasn't just I think I'm going to lay on the ground. It was truly a smart choice that the actor who did their homework was able to say, okay, but if I do break this rule, what will it cost me?
I love that. And I already hear the echoes of some of our peers who are like, but are you going to talk about the cons? Yes, we will get to the dangerous reasons for making these choices, especially if you're a newer actor. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a special announcement about the Brooke and Matt show. Take it away, wife.
The Brooke and Matt show is the place to be. It's on our YouTube channel. Come and see.
That is copyrighted. Do not steal that song from us. But you can come watch our show. New episodes first of every month.
Make sure you like and subscribe and smash that subscribe button.
She said subscribe twice. Which, I mean, to that point, I will sort of bring up a psychological thing that we all have to acknowledge, which is, especially if you've seen Stranger Things, Superman, and Severance, then as you watch these 3 audition tapes and you go, oh my gosh, they were perfect for the role. It's like, well, of course they were perfect. They booked the role. So you have this weird confirmation bias because you've seen the finished product. Now you're watching this raw audition that maybe you're surprised that it's so similar in terms of performance to the finished product. But then it comes out as, oh my gosh, they were perfect for the role. And that is such a flawed thing to say because they booked the role.
Yeah.
And so you it's really hard to separate that out. If you've watched those audition tapes, having never seen the finished products, you have a more objective approach to watching this. But that's just something that I think needs to be said when you're watching any audition tape of something where you've seen the finished product. It's fun and it can excite some curiosity, but I think we have to be careful about connecting too many dots if we're sort of distracted by the finished product as we watch that.
And I'm just going to go off script a little bit, which is there's also all of the people who had auditioned for The Office that didn't book it that are out there. And I think that if you were to have watched those actors, gosh, I'm trying to even think of them because all you can think of is Steve Carell as Michael Scott and Krasinski as Jim. And all you can think of is that. But then it's interesting to watch whoever else was auditioning for those roles. But when you get down to the nitty gritty, you recognize that what they had was a quality about them that the whole entire picture of the cast needed that those specific people had on lock. They didn't even have to work for it. They just were.
Yeah. And I think Rainn Wilson auditioned for Jim, and Adam Scott, who lead of Severance, auditioned for I think he auditioned for like
for Rainn Wilson's job.
Either that or Steve Carell's. There's just a lot of people that now are famous that you can go back and watch those audition tapes for The Office, and that's a great point to like go watch those audition tapes and go, can you imagine Rainn Wilson as Jim? Like he's Dwight, he can't be Jim. That makes no sense. And so I think looking at both sides of that equation is helps us to maybe remind ourselves of how subjective this becomes, this exercise in watching these tapes, if we've already seen the finished product. It's just something that needs to be said. And I think the other thing too to kind of keep in mind that is, it's not getting into the cons. It's just sort of addressing some obvious things, which is if Britt, if Dacre and if David, right? Those 3 actors that we're talking about, if they already had established relationships with those casting offices, then all of these rules that they're breaking suddenly become a lot less risky. Because imagine if you are a casting director who is looking at tapes for a first, second, third round, and you've never seen an actor before, and they're immediately breaking rules, but you can tell they're doing it for a gimmicky reason. That's why there are these universal taping instructions that feel like they're putting the fear of God in you to not make these weird choices. Don't tape in your kitchen. Please, we don't want to see your dog or your child walk through your audition space. It's because if you're trying to make a first impression with that casting office, then you should stick to their rules for the most part, right? We're going to kind of give these exceptions here, but so presumably, I think it's reasonable to assume that all 3 of these actors, maybe not so much Dacre, because I think he's maybe from Australia, but so he may not have had a relationship with the Carmen Cuba casting office, which did Stranger Things. But it's reasonable to assume, based on the resumes, that David and Britt have had auditioned for those offices before. And so it just becomes a little bit less risky in that equation to make a choice that's off the beaten path. But again, back to your point, Brooke, that still fits the script analysis and the character analysis that you've done, such that it feels like there's no other way I could do this and feel good about the tape.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It totally does. And I think that you and I both have made taken risks in our auditions where I know, right?
Tell me about tell me what you did in your freaky audition, Brooke.
There was a note, or not a note. What am I talking about? It was in the scene, the description that she comes in and she turns on a light. And
so it's like we started the audition
so
like that.
I'm putting things down and then I flip on the light. And it was just someone over off to the side flipping on the light. But to me, it was that the lights come on and I'm seeing what is happening in front of me clearer. Mm-hmm. So it helped me to move from darkness to light. I didn't have to do it. The team, when I had the callback, asked me, like, did you turn on the light? I'm like, yeah, just because I really did feel like that was what the environment called for.
Yeah.
So I took that risk, but to me, it wasn't that risky.
Sure.
Because that's how I wanted to do it.
Yeah. I think that's great. And so to be clear, you did book that role.
Yes.
Okay, great. This is a legal record that we're keeping here. And so we could continue to talk about roles that we've booked. I've shared on the Get Tape channel before my Walking Dead audition that did get me the role, where I started with 27 seconds of silence, mm-hmm. partly because I shine in silence, but also because the character, it was very clear that the character needed to be silently intimidating. And in fact, once I booked the role, Lisa May, the casting director, calls me to make sure I understood that there was no actual dialogue for the role. The dialogue they gave me was actually for the other character in the scene, the other sort of interrogator, and which I was fine with. It was the last season, so I was like, this is my last chance. But so it might be, it's helpful to talk about those times where it's like, ooh, see what I did? I took a risk and it paid off. Mm-hmm. But there's also been times, I know for me personally, where I felt strongly about a choice to do in that audition space. Specifically, there was a show called Creepshow. It was the reboot of Creepshow that was on the Shudder network. I never booked anything on that one, but I did have some fun in a couple of those auditions. But again, because I did have a really good relationship with that casting office. So I felt like, and so I think this is one of the good lessons, which is for newer actors or even established actors, but maybe there are still casting offices that you've never been seen by, is just to be careful about making those quote unquote bold choices or those off the beaten path choices if it's still that first or second time that you're being seen by that office. Because, for instance, there was this audition for a Santa Claus character, but that he had like fingers that turned into almost like Wolverine claws because he was trying to slay like werewolves and vampires. Or, anyways, I remember lines like, "You're a were cheetah," and "You're a were, what are you, a were turtle," or something like that. But like my character shows up in the audition. It's supposed to be very intimidating. Like one of I think your lines was "Holy crap," mm-hmm. but a more explicit version of that because of how imposing and scary the entrance was supposed to be. And so to this point of making interesting choices, we started in almost complete darkness. And then I stepped into like a shaft of light that just cut across my face. Mm-hmm. And you could see that I was wearing a red shirt to kind of approximate Santa, but it was like a muscle shirt so that it showed that Santa was kind of, here to kick some butt, take some names. And to me, it was very risky from the standpoint of the lighting. Didn't book it, but also because I have a close relationship with that office, I didn't get like a note back from Feldstein Paris saying, Matt, what was that? Mm-hmm. And had they done it, I would have laughed. They might have laughed, and I would have known not to do it again, sure. or to make such an interesting choice again. But I didn't, and so it was a calculated risk, and based on what I felt would really make the audition feel more grounded for me, but also certainly a little bit more cinematic for the audience. I think that's something that is baked into this equation that Britt, by having a camera operator who was probably also her reader, maybe not, maybe there was two people on the other side of that camera, that was able to do such a smooth tilt and also knew to not tilt all the way up when she stood.
Right.
They knew the exact stopping point so that when Britt fell back into frame, it was a nice static frame the rest of the scene. Mm-hmm. And so that amount of tilt certainly drew the attention of a lot of viewers, but it wasn't distracting. It was just necessary for the staging they created. And I thought that was great. I thought that was an appropriate choice to make. And I don't think that she set out to do an audition in her bathroom or in a bathroom. It was probably more so of, okay, where can we set this up where I can sit against a door, kick a door?
Well, it's interesting because I don't know whether she set out to do it in her bathroom, but I'm thinking with all of the script analysis, if there was anywhere in there that said a sterile room, where do you feel like the most sterile room could be?
Or claustrophobic.
Yeah, or claustrophobic. So there might have been some thought into it that I find fascinating. And yet, if this was a new office that she was auditioning for, I still have this feeling in my gut because she was so herself, because she was so grounded, because she was so in tune with what was going on in a show that no one knew what was going on. Auditioning for pilots is really hard. You don't know the tone. You don't know where things are going unless for some reason you get the show Bible and you get an understanding of where things are going. But it is very difficult to audition for pilots. So with her own understanding of what the role called for, she brought her own authenticity to it that if I tried to do it, it would have been different. It just, and not that I'm saying I auditioned for her because I didn't. But any other artist who had the opportunity to audition for that are probably watching her audition going, well, I could have done it in the bathroom.
Yeah.
I could have done it lying on the ground. I could have kicked on the floor or kicked on the door. And yet they didn't, because that wouldn't have been true to the performance that they were hoping to bring to light.
And I think even though we did not script out this topic, this video, I do think you sort of just circled around to one of the main points that we would both agree on in terms of what to take away from these videos, which is exactly what you just said of if I auditioned for Dacre Montgomery's role, 30 years ago, and if I tried to make those same choices, it goes back to that old analogy of you're sitting in the waiting room back when auditions used to be in person, and you hear what the director is telling to the previous actor. And let's just say it's a comedy. And then, after that direction, they're getting laughs. And then you're going, oh, so that's the word I need to hit, or that's the version of that's how I get the joke. Oh gosh, I need to recalibrate. And it's like, no, that's what that actor needed in terms of an adjustment to make that script come to life. And what you need, or what is going to make your audition feel authentic, might not have anything to do with that previous actors. And so if you were in an acting class and you were given the sides for Superman, or for Britt's character in Severance, or for Dacre's character in Stranger Things, which would be unfair because of how famous they are and that the audition tapes exist. But let's just say that some cruel twist of fate, the acting teacher asks you to do that. Like, now you go tape your version. I mean, it's an interesting thought exercise of would you then go rewatch what Dacre and Britt and David did and go, okay, I need to find that. Should I get my wife to sit and lean in to turn on and off the tape recorder? Should I do it in the bathroom? If you're asking those questions, then you've completely lost the point. And which is the danger of these tapes being sort of applauded with no context, which is like, oh my gosh, they're amazing. Because then actors start thinking, oh, so I should be doing those things. I should be taking those bold risks.
That's the way that I'm going to grab the attention.
Yeah, because every casting Q&A ever that we've been to, and our agency did this several years ago, right before COVID, where they brought in over 2 days, like almost every casting director from the Southeast. It was amazing. So we got to see back to back to back to back all these Q&As with these casting directors, and every single one, it wasn't the same actor, but every single one, there was at least one person who asked that question, either how do I stand out? How do I get on your radar if I'm new to this market? Should I be making bold choices? All variations of the same thing. Like there's this noise. I want to stand out, as this signal that stands out of the noise. How do I do that? So I think all of this sort of wraps up nicely into maybe our final point on this whole thing, which is, if Brooke is going to do the Severance audition, she can't even be thinking about bathrooms and sitting on the floor. She needs to do her own script analysis and what is her essence that will make this character uniquely Brooke. That if they cast Brooke, they have to go a different direction with a lot of other things. If you do watch the show, we won't give any spoilers, but there's a complicated nature to that character of Helly.
Mhm.
And so if they cast Brooke, then that complication, that complexity is going to come from a different thing.
Sure.
It's not going to come from that sort of mysterious thing that Britt does that I think she leaned into either consciously or unconsciously, having so much silence in that scene of her
Mhm.
waking up, struggling, the confusion. It looked good on her, right? Like
Yeah.
it just felt so authentic for her to live in that.
She wasn't playing. She wasn't playing mysterious. She wasn't playing confused. She
Yeah.
just understood who she was and how she would react if given those
Yeah.
circumstances.
And this is where I think having seen the final product does help in the sense that casting would have had the sides. They would know the full context of the scene as they're watching this video.
Mhm.
If you were to show that audition video to someone who had never heard of Severance or seen it and just showed them the video with no context of what the show was about, you would probably be confused and you probably wouldn't like it. You'd be like, what is going on? Why is she on the floor? What is taking so long? This is boring.
Mhm.
But knowing the full context of the scene, which casting would, they would have been on the edge of their seat that whole time
Mhm.
going, yes, she understands the scene. She understands that there is this mystery out of, in these early scenes of waking up in this mysterious space. And then like David Corden's sweat, as I sort of thought about that being the audition side, like this very simple scene between him and Lois Lane, but I think it's sort of genius, whether that was James Gunn or whether that was casting's decision to focus on that scene. If the actor who was auditioning for Superman, if they can't charm the pants off of Lois Lane and then by extension the audience by just simply sitting there talking to her across the room, and especially given the actual tension that's in the scene, for him to navigate that the way, James Gunn's vision of Superman, if it didn't line up, then that would be a really telling scene for them to use. And so he just trusted his simple charm.
Mhm.
That even while sipping a glass of water and, the glass is on and off, right? Things that are props that, we're told never drink or eat in your audition and don't use props, don't wear glasses, don't wear hats, don't do all this stuff. But A, he's Clark Kent / Superman. The glasses are sort of important. And B, he's just finding those things that ground him in the scene and that naturally bring out that essence of him through those actions and through those that setup that just allows that charm to come through. He's basically getting out of his own way.
Exactly.
Britt is getting out of her own way. And then I think Dacre, he's got that sort of dangerous volatility about him. And so him doing it with a shirt off and giving eyes to the camera at the end, and he's slating again, but in character, Billy or whatever. It's so cheesy, right? Like I couldn't get away with that. And if I tried to, it would come across in a very different way. And so I think, but I'd love your thoughts on this, just so that I'm not using up all the oxygen here. But on this idea of finding your essence or your authentic take on the role, and then letting that sort of settle and guide your choices. And if it means, doing something off the beaten path, then so be it.
Sure, because I'm trying to, I'm curious. What did the breakdown say when it went out to these three human beings? And were they something that like, oh my gosh, it is me? And then a lot of times people will see that. They'll see it on the page of like, this is me. But then, and I'm guilty as charged.
Oh, no.
To where if I see something on the page that I feel is totally me, I need to convince you that this is me. So I do too much here, too much there. I throw on, like if I were David and I had charm oozing from me, then I would try to turn on the charm. And that's gross. But I think what these three people did was they saw the breakdown and either they tossed it out the window and said, I'm enough. And the breakdown is actually meant for the casting to share with the agents so that the agents would know how to choose the selections for the submissions. So we don't really need to concern ourselves with them to the degree that I think we do, because if we already have these qualities, then the thing we need to do is, like you said, get out of our own way. And there are many human beings on the planet that I'm sure look like they could play a Superman in a Superman universe, but if they don't have that charm, like you said, it falls short. And whatever this gentleman has, he might have been fighting it of like, gosh, I can't book a role as this because I'm too charming. And next thing you know, the role that comes across his desk that just needs charm to just ooze is the one that he books.
Yeah. Because, like, for instance, Nicolas Cage, his dream role was Superman. He even
I didn't know this.
created like I think a pitch video for himself that's made some rounds around the internet. And whether or not you would want to see that version of Superman, it's so different. And just like, and it's an interesting, I think, study of like Superman and Batman, these iconic characters where so many actors have played them, and you can really see their unique essence. Like, to me, still, Michael Keaton is the best, well-rounded Batman. I love Christian Bale, but both Bruce Wayne and Batman are dark. Whereas I thought Michael Keaton found this amazing balance, which, again, I don't know that he found it. It's just in him. And I think that's the overall point. And so I think, and this has been going on for over 25 minutes, assuming we don't edit it down. To kind of wrap this up, I do want to throw caution to those actors who might be getting the wrong message from all of the applause that's happening in these videos. And again, certainly some of our peers who are hoping that we end with cautionary tales, which is if you don't learn the rules, you have not earned the right to break them. So you have to learn.
Say that again.
Yeah. And or another way of saying it is spirit of the law versus letter of the law. It's good to learn the letter of the law. When you take your driver's license test, man, they will dock you points for the simplest of things. I remember my test, and the person tricked me a couple times, and I'm like, are you kidding me? That's not fair. And so in that respect, at the beginning stages, it's important to learn the letter of the law, or the reason why you're being asked to do these taping instructions, why a blank backdrop is so much better than this, right? This distraction, because, you're going to be looking at, oh, I can see the, the outlet back there. And, oh, is that a tissue box now that I'm leaning out of the way? And that could be very distracting. And so having a blank backdrop is just a good rule of thumb. And if you could see some of the tapes that casting sees, just cast your own short film and solicit self-tapes from around your market, and you will in an instant understand why there are taping instructions. It's to just make sure that the bulk in that bell curve distribution of submissions, the bulk, right, that 70% that lands in the middle is usable, is something that you would not feel embarrassed showing to your director or whoever's going to make that final decision. And there's a lot of people who just don't get that because you are taping at home and you're trying to figure this out on your own, and you're not a DP or a lighting designer. And so once you learn and once you've got your feet wet with self-tapes, such that you understand the reason, the letter of that law, then it's about just honoring the spirit of the law. And when something comes up, like, I'm Clark Kent, I have to wear glasses, even though the general taping instructions for this casting office might say, never wear glasses if you don't, wear glasses. And I've seen that. I've seen that in taping instructions. Do not put on glasses. Do not put on a hat. Do not wear anything outside the ordinary. And it's like, okay, I get it, because you've probably seen way too many people doing it for gimmicky reasons. But this is where the actor needs to be discerning, but you have to earn, I think, that discernment. Would you agree with that? Like, the discernment to make these bold choices.
Sure, because I think when people, it's distracting from the heart of humanity, of what you're trying to bring to the role. And I have a fan right here. I don't know why. But like, if I was to make us a fan, I don't even know who this is.
I do declare.
But, this can start to get really distracting if this becomes the whole scene. And then it's like, please stop fanning yourself.
Yeah.
So there is a risk for what you do, not to mention that probably created some interesting noises in the microphone. But I think that the things that we can take control of in our own self-tapes is how we use said prop, and so that it doesn't become all about the prop. And the prop is not the thing that's going to book you at all.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's another thing is, like, watch those 3 tapes again and certainly pay attention to those things that they're doing that are breaking the rules, but realize that that is not why they booked those roles. It wasn't that Carmen Cuba was sitting around going, I just want someone to take their shirt off in their slate so that we can cast the role of Billy.
Which I think is against SAG rules.
Well, SAG says you can't be asked to.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
with a self-tape, casting can't control whether or not I slate shirtless.
That's true.
They just can't ask you to slate shirtless. So that's something if the role requires you to remove like a layer of clothing, you are guaranteed the right to have a layer of clothing underneath it. And so, yeah, that office isn't sitting around waiting for someone to finally break the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But for the character of Billy, at least the way Dacre saw him, because Dacre presumably could not have really seen Billy any other way.
Yeah.
It made sense to loosen this idea. And he might have been new enough to self-taping that he didn't even know what the rules are.
Mm-hmm.
And that just became an accident, right? Like sitting
Like
down
in
at
a
the
vault.
slot machine and getting a jackpot on the first pull. But it's not something that I think actors should take away as like, oh, I should break the rules in every audition, because no, now you're risking it. It's like, oh, I can roll through that stop sign and not get a ticket. Well, you might get lucky and there might not be a cop those first few times, but then when you finally roll through that stop sign that the cop is there, you're going to get that ticket. And so if you never practice the letter of the law again to understand it, then breaking it, and you won't know why you're breaking it other than for the gimmick to stand out. And I just think that it's dangerous to just applaud these self-tapes. And even, there are professionals in the industry, gatekeepers, who are applauding them, which is fine, but they're not giving context to why they say this is the way to break the rules. Because again, that same casting office would be so annoyed by the other 7 or 25 or 50 actors if they all did that same choice of like, can someone please not be in a bathroom for this audition?
Right.
And so you just have to be careful of what you take away from this.
And I would just like to also say a lot of what we do as artists is to create a level of trust and value and consistency in our work. That if we continue to do the consistent work, and next thing you know, where we decide to get really, really bold with a choice that is completely outside of our character, and almost to the point where the casting director is like, whoa, where did that come from? That came out of left field. I was hoping that you would bring that silent thing, Matt, that you did, and you just decided to yell this whole entire audition or breathe really heavily. That's just weird. A lot of it is that consistent impression that we're placing on the relationship between casting and the artist. Because if you're new, like you had mentioned before, and you've not auditioned for this office before, you want to do your best work. And you want to do your best work the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth time, to where when they call you in the seventh time, because they're like, this is the role, but you're the artist going, they called me in for this show. This is the seventh time. I just want to turn it down. You know what? I'm just going to make fun of it. I'm just going to do something bold and outrageous. And they can't show that tape to casting because they'll probably call your agent and say, hey, can they retape?
Yeah.
And that's fine if you're willing to retape. And then you probably will book the role when you just give your take on the audition.
Yeah. In our Sam Christensen process, now that we're 30 plus minutes into this, we'll start plugging. First of all, a little humble brag for us, of the 100 plus combined. I mean, I think last time I did it for our website, we're over like 140 combined IMDb credits.
Sure.
Now, not all of those are like, high profile TV and film, but for all of those that were self-tapes where we booked, I would say the vast majority, we were playing by the rules when it came to the taping instructions.
Yes.
But we were letting that authenticity shine through, which is so much of the benchmark of our Sam Christensen process. And once you do have that full ownership of how you're being perceived, of what that bestseller is, of if it's Carmen Cuba, right? And if it's my 15th audition for Stranger Things, and all of the auditions have been in some sort of like, oh, it's always been a scientist or a cop, and they're always kind of like, I only ever have 2 lines spread out over 4 pages. Well, you're getting a lot of clues to what Carmen Cuba likes about you and is expecting from you. In that case, right, for me, it might be that quiet sort of strength or something about that quiet. It's either intimidating or it's whatever. And if I don't recognize that, if I don't understand that that's how the world sees me, specifically if that's how casting sees me, then I'm going to start getting frustrated, like you said, on the 10th, 12th audition and I'm going to start improvising lines. You know, you gave me 2 lines over 4 pages. I'm going to turn that into 10 lines because I'm really funny and I want to be like Danny McBride and improvise. It's like, no, save that for Righteous Gemstones. You know, both these shows now are off the air,
know, right?
but or they're done at least with any sort of future casting. And so if an actor does not understand what it is that is causing that casting director to select their headshot to begin with and to press play on their self-tape, if you don't already know what their expectation of you is, then you have not earned the right to break these rules just on a whim or out of frustration, or I've been doing this for 20 years and I hate this industry, and so I'm just going to say screw it and do it my own way. You know, yes, do it your way, but not for those reasons of like, I just want to flip the table over and sort of give a finger to the industry. If you've never done that work to understand what it is that is getting you in the door, then you run that risk of completely switching the flavor on them when all they wanted was that same tried and true flavor that they've always ordered every time they come to that restaurant. And they just want it again. And you're like, no, you think you want that flavor. I'm going to give you this bold new flavor of 17 flavors combined. And then they're going, what is this?
Yeah.
What is? And so, you know, we did bury the lead in terms of it being a sort of a plug for the Sam Christensen process, but it is so powerful once you understand that about yourself.
And not only that, it helps to know how to present yourself in your materials, because if your headshot is screaming one thing that you want to be, if you were screaming in your headshot that you are Superman, it's going to come off a little bit on the intimidating side, but they're going to hopefully read that essence quality about you to see through what you're trying to do with your headshot. But a lot of people come into this industry thinking you need a good picture of yourself. And a lot of times we want to make sure it's kind of like what we do on social media, which I am off, but you know, you try to curate an image of yourself. And a lot of times when you come into the room, it's a completely different vibe that you're giving. And if you don't know how the world perceives you, then you also are having a hard time making that decision in your headshot and your materials to match that preview of what they're going to have of you in the room. So they might be selecting a headshot of you. I actually was in a workshop. The union offers, or through the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, some great workshops that you can take for free. And one of the casting directors cast this woman in a role based on her headshot. And when she did the scene, he's like, I cast you completely wrong because I felt like your headshot led to you being this type of character.
To be clear, he cast her in the workshop, not in real life.
No. Thank you for that clarification. As far as like the sides that we were given to prepare for the workshop. And that's telling that he saw her as one thing and she came into the room completely in a different vibe, and it was confusing. Yeah. So to be able to understand how the world sees you, to be able to reconcile how you see yourself with the way that the world sees you, and where that overlaps and where there is a huge gap, then we might be leaving a lot of money on the table in the sake of bookings because we've been running from that thing that we are like, oh, but that's not a really good quality of myself. I mean, how many judgmental women have I booked? And I
37?
No, Matt. 40. I'm kidding. Yeah. But there's a part of me that's what casting comes to my store to purchase, which is that judgmental person in control. And I can do that with my eyes closed. Yeah. But then there are times when if I really want the role and it says that, I put a little extra stank on that. And then I have to remind myself, I already have that. Don't play it.
Judgmental stank.
Yep.
And then, I think just to kind of actually start to wrap this up, the theme, even though we sort of felt like we were diverging to a different topic, at the end, it really still is tied into this, which is all actors need to understand what that thing is that they bring to the table, so that regardless of taping instructions, regardless of breakdown, you know what will be authentic for you. Mm-hmm. And you know, the bulk of the time that will be in line with taping instructions. You won't feel the need to do something in terms of framing or location or props. You won't need to do that. And if you do, it's you're trying to get a gimmick. You're trying to stand out for the wrong reasons.
Hmm.
Um, but once you understand what that thing is, and once you sort of lean into it for a long enough time that you create a consistency, that I mean, that's another key to this. You think about any brand out there that has marketed themselves, and it takes 7 impressions
Hmm.
before that brand starts to get sticky. Like, you have to create a consistent experience. And that doesn't just mean the same backdrop, but it means that you need to understand yourself enough that every time I watch your tapes, even if it's for 7 different characters, those first 7 auditions need to be consistent in terms of the quality of the work, and that quality of authenticity that you get it.
Hmm.
And while you're not right this time, man, I'm thinking about you for the next time, because that was such an interesting sort of piece of humanity that you brought to it that felt so true to you.
Hmm.
I now know more about you. And now next time I will be more intentional about how I submit you if I'm your agent, or how I request you if I'm casting. But if we don't establish that consistency, and that bleeds, like I said, into those self tapes, you shouldn't just be doing weird crap every audition, like how the background of our videos seems to be changing every video. I mean,
You're not consistent, Matt. You're
when I
not
did this with
consistent.
Alex, we were over there and it was lit a lot different. Like, if I don't create a consistency on this channel, you're confused by it.
Hmm.
And so I think the final lesson, if anything, is to cultivate consistency in your work, in your craft, which means training. But then even in the self tapes you put out, such that you feel like there is this consistent Matt that is showing up, even in this role versus that role versus that role. And then once I feel so confident in that authenticity of who I am, now I will start to discern when it's right to deviate from these hard and true taping instructions. So
Yes.
do with that what you will. Do you have any final thoughts, Brooke?
I just love my husband so
Oh my
much.
god.
He's so knowledgeable, and I just could sit here and listen to him all day.
Oh gosh, that's so sweet. As I perfectly time the cameras back and forth, it feels a little bit inauthentic, the fact that I'm also running cameras while doing this. Y- God bless you if you're still watching. I'm sure some people clicked on this hoping for like a 5-minute review of these self tapes, but it was too nuanced of a topic to just do in a quick little video. Plus, I did want Brooke's perspective on this, and maybe we'll do more videos like this in the future. If you like this format where Brooke and I are both here, please drop a comment below. Or if you have alternate thoughts on these self tapes or our opinions on it, let us know. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching. And
We'll see you on set.
she remembered.